A bunch of morons are going to get us all killed. And I'm not talking about the stupid protesters waving signs like, I need a haircut. They'll likely just get themselves killed and potentially some other people if they spread the coronavirus. But yes, many people showed up to protest the lockdowns, and many of them had very stupid signs. This was fodder for leftist memes to say, to be used, to make the claim that the protests are all BS and that we shouldn't actually lift these lockdowns. And I say, it is those people posting these stupid memes that are going to get us all killed. Do you know there's a certain point where the economy collapses, and not only do you get famine, starvation, you get riots and fighting in the street. We get suicides, and people are already, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but yes, people have already taken their lives. This segment is not going to be entirely just about these stupid signs. You click the link, you know what it's about. It's about this story. The UN has warned of biblical famines of 250 million people as coronavirus threatens to leave 36 nations starving. And when someone comes out and says we must reopen the economy, what do we get? A bunch of half-baked moron memes from people who don't know what's actually happening. So I make a joke on Twitter, and I get a bunch of people saying, Tim, people are going to get us all killed because they want haircuts. Some people have just shaved their heads. Some people, like, I think, didn't Sargon just do that because he couldn't get a haircut? Something like that. I don't know. Check it out. His head's shaved. It looks good, by the way, Sargon. But it's not about getting haircuts. And I will absolutely criticize the stupid people. I will absolutely criticize those without principle who would criticize protests on the left, but then demand they get a right to protest. The reality is, everybody's allowed to protest. But we are facing biblical famines, warns the UN. And I'm going to read this for you. But the first thing I want to do is explain to you why it is. Listen, if you want to protest to lift the shutdown orders because you're concerned about small businesses, that's fine. Do so. If you don't like the shutdown orders because you have a constitutional right to assemble and worship, fine, do so. But if anyone asks you, like, what's going on and why you need to protest, tell them it's not about just your small business. It's about how all of these small businesses work together to create a sustainable economy supporting human life. At a certain point, with the economy shut down, people start dying. Biblical famines. 250 million people could be starving. At a certain point, we have to accept the harsh reality that there is a trade-off. As the economy goes down, it might become more destructive. The UN is telling us this. But let me show you some of these grand memes. I'm going to read you the story. I'm going to tell you about the famine. That's the important information you want. But I got to push back on these annoying memes. First of all, some of the signs held by protesters calling for an end to the coronavirus lockdown raise eyebrows. Quote, I need a haircut. Yet please don't do this. No, you don't need a haircut. You need a small business to function. See that sign next to it? Save our small businesses? That I recognize. That I understand. But if you want to go out and hold this silly sign, then fine. Don't be surprised when you look really, really bad and everyone blames you. Let my people golf. Are you kidding me? Here's one. Give me liberty or give me death. Now that I understand. Simple statement, and I understand it and agree with it. Now listen, I don't know the context of these photos. Some people will argue and say they're fake or they're jokes. That's fine. Some people will say it's leftists trying to make them look bad. That's possible too, because I'm going to show you this tweet right here. This is a poster, a flyer for a protest that's going around that is very obviously fake. It says, end the lockdown rally. No mask needed. Bring your children, non-essential workers. If you're sick, still come. It's your right. Sunday, April 19th. Conference House Lawn, 11 a.m. Keep America Great. Hashtag end the shutdown NYC. It's fake. Nobody showed up. There was no plan. Somebody made a fake flyer, took a picture of it, and now you get a ton of people who are just sharing it. Whether or not they accept that it's real or not. Notably, David Pakman, for instance, posted this. That's actually where I found it. He quote tweeted saying, wow, looking at this, which is very, very obviously, he says, wow, just wow. Very, very obviously fake. I'm not sure if he knows it's fake or why he's sharing it. He's not saying much. Perhaps he'll say that he just posted it saying wow because he knew it was fake. I don't know. The point is, don't share fake stuff. Okay? It's fake. Nobody is saying don't come and wear a mask and bring your kids. But there's more. Let me go through some of these memes. This is one that's been going around on Reddit. Conservatives just obey authority. Conservatives just obey authority. Conservatives, it affects me now, so now I don't believe in obeying authority. Actually, no, that's not the argument being made. First and foremost, police brutality is wrong, And police should be held accountable 100% when they violate the rights of an individual, regardless of the color of their skin. We do have problems with racism in this country. That's a fact. And there are a lot of people who ultimately just trust the police when they're policing. It's not an issue of just obeying authority. That is not fair. Conservatives just obey authority as it pertains to illegal immigration. Right. They're saying obey the laws of our country. Guess what? When the protesters come out and say, we want the lockdowns lifted, they are still saying obey authority, the Constitution. The government does not have the right or the authority to decree anything. They are saying the governments must adhere to the authority of the land, the Constitution. But by all means, there are hypocrites on the right who won't stand up for people who are brutalized by police or by some, by just general abuses by law enforcement. Of course there are. But to create a caricature of what's really going on is what really bothers me. The people protesting for their right, for their First Amendment right, are protesting for civil liberties the same as you would be. So I'll tell you what, let's flip the script. When you say we should protest the police brutality, but now when it comes to the government arresting women for going to playgrounds, arresting dudes for paddleboarding, you speak out against it. The hypocrisy is a mirror image. Stop playing these games and actually stand up for people's rights. And then I have this last one. The curve is flattening. We can stop social distancing. And then you see the same guy in a parachute. The parachute has slowed my fall. I can take it off now. At a certain point, yes. If you are parachuting from a plane and you have begun to drift towards a volcano, you might want to say, well, I can just go for the volcano, or I can take the parachute off and fall, and I'll probably survive, but I'll be injured. You get the point? These people are making these insane memes to tell you to let people starve to death and die. And it's the most frustrating thing to me. The UN has warned of biblical famines. Biblical famines. We are not talking about getting a haircut. And that's what people are saying to me, Tim, what about these people who just want to get haircuts? I don't care. I don't want to see 250 million people starving, because starving people, we're trying to help people. People deserve to eat. Well, whether or not they can get food is a challenge. What we're talking about is people working and producing food. There was another meme where it said, the same people that are protesting the end of these lockdowns are the ones who demanded a shutdown of social services for families. And I'm like, that's not even a point to be made against them. You're right, they'll agree with you. They're not asking for a handout. They're not protesting the government give them anything. They're protesting for the right to keep working and make their own things. And when those people stop, the government can't just give you things. It's not magic. These people who are slamming on these protesters don't realize that food has to be made by someone. And when you shut down the economy, food isn't being made by someone and it can't be sent to other people. The government isn't just going to fabricate food in its magical Elysium lab and then give it out to all of the people of the world. Oh, they'll print money for you, and then eventually the money becomes worthless and you can't eat it. I love it. The leftist activists love to have that saying. It's a famous quote where it's like, only after every tree is destroyed, after every lake is poisoned, after every farm, blighted or whatever, will people finally realize you can't eat money. I wonder if these leftists will recognize that right now. The hypocrisy is it's palpable. Look, I have seen protesters on the left go out and people on the right mock and ridicule them and tell them to get out of the road and get a job and all that stuff. And I've seen people on the left slam conservatives now protesting for their rights, saying you're hypocrites, blah, blah, blah. Look, both people who do that are hypocrites. The reality, most people recognize the right to protest. Most people recognize we must defend our rights. It used to be the left calling out the intelligence agencies' abuse of powers. Are they doing that today? For the most part, no. They're supporting them, saying, orange man bad, go for him, spy on us. Now they're starting to come back around a little bit, but it's strange to me to see movies like Zeitgeist, which actually has quotes from Alex Jones, and here's like a lefty guy and now a right-wing guy. It used to be anti-authority, now the left has adopted authoritarianism. Let me actually read you the story. The United Nations warned the coronavirus pandemic could trigger famine as the worldwide freeze on commerce sent shockwaves through financial markets. The bleak warning came on Tuesday as deaths from the virus surpassed 174,000 worldwide, with governments anxiously trying to chart a path out of the unprecedented global health and economic emergency. One World Food Program director warned widespread famines of biblical proportions could force millions in already vulnerable countries into starvation due to the global crisis. The economic impact of the pandemic could lead to a humanitarian catastrophe, with the number of people suffering from acute hunger projected to nearly double to 265 million this year. The UN's World Food Program warned 265 million. So about 132 million people will be made to starve because it's doubling the number. So you already have starving people. You want to double that number? How many people will die? 174,000 people around the world have died. I get it. That's really, really bad. You know, we're heartbroken. We're scared. If we stay on this course, the UN is telling us 132 million people will be put at risk. If even a small percentage of those starving people die, it will dramatically surpass the coronavirus. Now, let's be real. If we reopen the economy to make sure there's food for everybody, it's entirely possible the amount of death from the coronavirus exponentially increases, potentially a second wave. I don't know the math. I just know that you can't outright dismiss the fact that the economy needs to function, unless, of course, you want people to die. It's annoying to me that, you know, even people I know, like I've said, I apologize for reiterating it, but I can't believe my own friends would be like, Tim, we got to stay locked down. It's not about a haircut. I'm like, you're right, it's not. Have you actually read this news? They haven't. They see memes. They base off these low-grade garbage memes, and they think it's reality. And too many people do that. I don't care about your political faction. They say debates are raging worldwide over when and how to relax lockdowns imposed to prevent the spread of the highly contagious virus. We have this major forecast, which just about doubles the number. These people are going to lose their lives, man. Many leaders fear triggering another wave of infections, but are also worried about the mounting economic costs and signs of social tension. These people like to pretend like the economy is just some stupid rich guy in a loft in New York City. It's not. It's food growing from the ground, being sent to a plant to be processed, and a loaf of bread being delivered to a poor family who bought it with food stamps. That's the economy. It includes the government. It includes the people who need the food. It includes the taxpayer. It includes the trucks, the oil, the farmers. That's what we're talking about. We are on the brink of a hunger pandemic, WFP Director David Beasley told the UN Security Council in a video conference. Millions of civilians living in conflict-scarred nations, including many women and children, face being pushed to the brink of starvation, with the specter of famine, a very real and dangerous possibility. The worst-case scenario could see famine in some 36 countries, Beasley said. As the WFP warned of potential famine, a group of 20 agricultural ministers pledged to ensure sufficient global food supplies for the poorest, the most vulnerable, and displaced people. Freezes on whole sectors of commerce are already playing out dramatically on oil markets, where prices have crashed due to the drop-off in energy demand and a supply glut. Before the pandemic crisis, Beasley was appealing to donor countries to increase food relief funding to the poorest countries because war and natural disaster were putting severe strain on food systems. In East Africa, 70 million people were out at risk of starvation after locust swarms tore through crops earlier this year. He told The Guardian, I was already saying that 2020 would be the worst year since the Second World War on the basis of what we forecast at the end of last year. Now, my goodness, this virus is a perfect storm. It has taken us to uncharted territory. We are looking at widespread famines of biblical proportions. Please, whenever someone comes to you and says, your protest is stupid, we don't need to do this, just send them this. Send them the article. Go to the Daily Mail, send them the article, send them the video, let them know. We are not talking about Karen getting a haircut. We are talking about hundreds of millions of people dying from starvation. The United States is now the hardest hit country with more than 43,000 people dead. My heart goes out to them, their families. The problem is we want to minimize death, and there's no way to stop it. We want to minimize it. Okay, we got to take into consideration the facts that the economy plays a vital role in making sure people have heating for their homes, access to healthcare, food to eat, and water to drink. As the economic downturn starts to bite, President Donald Trump announced the U.S. would temporarily halt immigration to the country, claiming it would save American jobs, some 22 million of which have vanished in the wake of virus shutdowns. The vague threat, I'm not super concerned about this. In hard-hit Europe, some countries are cautiously creeping out from confinement, though large-scale gatherings appear to be out of the question for the foreseeable future. While Germany is allowing small shops to reopen, authorities canceled Oktoberfest, a beloved beer. We know what Oktoberfest is. Spain announced it was scrapping its annual bull running festival in Pamplona. In 1 week, though, Children in Spain who have been housebound for over a month under a tight lockdown will be allowed to accompany parents on food, shopping, and other sanctioned outings. Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has also promised to soon unveil a plan to start reopening the hard-hit country. This is good news. Things are going to start reopening. People want to see it reopened. I'm happy to see it, but we're also seeing many countries now suspend exports of food. Russia, other countries in Eastern Europe. Many nations are concerned they won't have food for themselves. It's not just about individuals going to shops and hoarding foods. Governments are doing it as well. And this means food relief and trade will no longer be available. Now, for most people, you might argue we shouldn't be sending too much food aid or food aid at all to certain countries. The argument is teach a man to fish, feed him for a day. Feed a man to fish, teach him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for the rest of his life. What we've tried doing in many poorer nations that are starving is give them the resources to learn how to farm better, grow more crops, and have food available. Many nations require food aid. Now, it's a double-edged sword. You give them the food, you save these lives, but then they just need more food in the future. How we solve that, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Some of these places aren't necessarily impoverished, but they produce specific things, not food. Like if there's a region that produces, say, rare earth minerals that we use for our electronics, they don't have food in this region, but they can trade this for food in return. If countries are suspending exports amid this lockdown, see, not just economic issues internally, then these regions that typically produce other products we need won't have food and will stop. The train will come to a stop immediately and every cart will be thrown off the track. People will die. Now, the bigger fear I have for all of this is the potential for war. A lot of stuff is going on in this front, and I'm going to save it for the next segment I do at 4 p.m. For those listening on the podcast, you've already heard it because it will be my main segment. War is a very real possibility. I am sick and tired of the snooty elitist, upper crust media elites who have jobs, who have paychecks, who don't understand how bad it is. And they say to me, hey man, I'm watching my friends get laid off, so I'm worried too. No, you're not. You haven't failed to pay rent. You haven't questioned whether or not you'll be able to buy food at all. You're sitting there saying, I hope I don't get fired. There's a very real difference between saying, oh man, I might get fired, and sitting there saying like, oh no, the power just went out. You want to talk about stress and fear? Wait until that happens to you. Now, maybe once these people in media start feeling the brunt of this, their opinions will change, but they're on top. So as the ship is sinking, they look around. It's like they love this Titanic meme where the back end of the Titanic goes up as it sinks, and they say, if we're really sinking, then why are we so high up? That's you, media personalities, not realizing the boat is going under, you're coming next, and because you're in your insulated Hollywood bubble, you have no idea what's coming. So I can't necessarily blame all of them. It's ignorance and naivety. But let me just show you what's happening. These memes are ridiculous, and they're annoying because they're on the front page of Reddit all day, every day. It's a bunch of children who are living in wealth. I understand things are getting bad for everybody. I understand you've been locked down, but you are still the wealthy, privileged elite. As everyone goes down and you go down with them, you are still on top. And you, telling these people they're stupid and advocating for longer shutdowns are ignoring the fact that we are facing biblical catastrophe and maybe even war. But you get the point. I feel like I'm just preaching to the choir so often. So what more can I say? If you support the video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a share. This, to me, is one of the most important things. I don't think every person protesting is doing it for altruistic reasons. I think some people just want haircuts. I think that's stupid. But to outright dismiss the fact the economy must be restarted soon is insane. Everybody needs to shut up. We need to look at what's going on in these places. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.